What is going on, guys? My name is Feeds, and welcome to Feeds Mindset episode number 23 with the lady HFoxx. HFoxx, how are you? Welcome in.
Doing great. I'm happy to be here and I'm super excited to talk with you guys. And yeah, we're just vibing.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to get into it. I bring the same exact point up on every single podcast. Me and you definitely, I wouldn't say that we're random people. We do know each other a little bit, but not really to much extent at all. I say that because the podcast is about mental health and mental awareness and the way that you connect and network with people. So I bring up this topic right out the gate because if there's anybody who's watching that struggle with that, I want to try to pique your engagement and kind of enlighten you on things and advice that you could take to kind of get out of your comfort zone and do what we're doing today. um so Fox, going into it, before we get into all these different topics and stuff, would you mind kind of
Mhm.
explaining to anybody watching who HFoxx is as of current day and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Hannah or Fox. I play a lot of first person shooters, mainly Apex and Call of Duty. I would say I'm a mental health streamer as well. I am currently engaged with a PhD program to pursue psychology as a degree. And I have a full time job and I stream part time, and I'm a huge advocate for women in gaming.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's really sick. And I'm excited to get into a lot of things. And I don't want to, get off topic. I kind of want to kind of keep the track going. But, versus where you are now and before we talk about who you are, I mean, are you excited the impacts that you've made and how far that you've came? Do you feel like you've came a long way?
Absolutely. A long way both in stream and just as a person in
Hmm.
development. I would say I was pretty immature when I first started streaming. I started in 2015, and that's obviously almost 10 years ago. I was a different person. I was fresh out of college. I didn't really have any goals for streaming. I just straight up did it because I thought it was cool. And now I would say I definitely have pivoted way more towards goal setting and being an advocate for women and mental health and a bunch of different things. So,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
definitely really excited to get into it, and especially for the women topic too. I usually do ask excuse me, the same question, for women in gaming because it is a difficult world out there. No matter how you want to sugarcoat it and things that you want to say and excuses you want to give, it is tougher in general, way harder for you guys than it is for us. And things like that people struggle saying with because they don't want to be like, oh, like you don't know what it's like. And it's like, I don't know what it's like. So that's why Hannah's on, so she can explain it, because you're not going to listen to me. And I fully understand that. And I think that's kind of the awareness that I want to raise too, is like, networking and connecting with other people when you have some type of struggle, like with women in gaming. They do struggle being women in gaming. I feel like, they come across somebody like me and instantly, without knowing me or my personality at all, like you're kind of already on edge. And I get it. I fully understand. And I feel like
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out there that haven't wrapped their heads around it and be like, why would you treat me different? I just want the best for you. And I feel like a lot of people struggle with seeing that, like, they all get treated the same exact way until they dive
Yeah.
into who they are. I mean, do you have the same opinion on that?
Yeah, definitely. There is a message for men within that too, and I think that women being treated uh, somewhat as less than throughout the entire gaming space for however long has been a huge issue. And the fact that the assumption is that gaming is for men or gaming is for boys and women can't partake heavily impacts our experience. And we're not treating you as like an outcast or you're so weird or so different. We're treating you as like our normal experience. That is our
Hmm.
day to day. Is creeps or people willing to tear us down or go after our looks, our stream, our accomplishments, literally everything. So it is the standard, unfortunately.
100%. Yeah. And that's a really good way to diversify it, because I feel like that's what a lot of women want to say to people, especially people that, they've got into issues with and all the hate stuff and all the drama. I feel like there is a lot that do want to say, like, I'm just treating you the way that I've been treated. And I feel like
Yep.
that's just something that's not normalized. And I feel like a lot of people take offense to it and be like, well, you shouldn't treat me that way. And it's like, well, I didn't want to be treated that way. So it's not the fact that it's a personal thing, but you have to keep your guard up. And everybody has certain circumstances where they have to keep their guard up in certain instances. And for women in gaming, it's unfortunate because they have to keep their guard up as soon as they get into it, and especially the things that kind of do stink is ones that do get into it and then they kind of don't really know about the space, and they kind of get blindsided by something they didn't expect
Yep.
because everybody at the end of the day is just like, man, I'm just here to game and create content and build a community, and then they get hit with all these outlandish things and they're like, whoa, like what actually is this space? Do you kind of feel the same way?
Yeah, I think there's really only like two ways to look at trust in this space, unfortunately. And one is to trust until it's broken, which is what I think a lot of new streamers go into this space with. They just automatically give it and they hope that it doesn't get broken. And the alternative to that is to not trust up front ever and wait until you kind of feel comfortable and you build that connection with somebody over a longer span of time. And I think if you've been burned enough, you default to the second one, and you'll learn pretty quick. And I don't know a person in the streaming space that hasn't dealt with that.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I fully agree, and it does apply to everybody, whatever you identify as or whatever your race is and stuff. Everybody has their own struggles and stuff, but if you take that as somebody reaching out to you and you just let your guard down, and be like, oh, like, well, he seems like a nice person. The issue is that they could end up not being a nice person, and then that ruins your mentality, and that really puts you more on high alert. So then, when you have somebody genuine, I would say somebody like myself that comes in, I'm genuine with everybody, and it is hard for me too because I'm instantly judged by all the other men and stuff on the platform. And again, I don't take offense to it. It is what it is. It happens. It's whatever. It's my struggle
Mhm.
that I go through being a creator because there's not a lot of genuine people out there. And so I think that's kind of the struggle for us is because the ones that just let their guard down instantly and say, "Oh, it'll be fine," then they get hurt and then they have a lot more issues trying to get back to, having that, I mean, what do you feel about that?
Yeah, yeah. I think honestly, for most people, they have been through something that's extremely close to them, somebody,
Mhm.
some event that's extremely close, that dug their way in, and it caused massive issues throughout. A mod, a VIP, a regular, whatever you want to call them, parasocial, completely
Mhm.
stranger that you don't know anything about. Um, this space sort of breeds that scenario over and over and over again, and it's never going to stop. And unfortunately, you just have to like figure out where you stand as a person and as a creator in your community and what you do and do not allow. And if it pushes boundaries, you just end up cutting. You become ruthless,
Yeah.
truly. You just become
Yeah.
ruthless.
Yeah, I definitely get that. I think, for me, I really try to stand out because I try to be super open right out the gate. Not because I'm giving you all this information about myself, but I make it a point, with me personally, the way that I treat it is I make it a point where you don't have to know me for months and months and months to know the kind
Yeah.
of creator that I am. I feel like if a lot of people adapted that kind of lifestyle, I feel like it would move mountains. I mean, I really do. I mean, there's a
Honestly,
lot of people out
yeah.
there that are fake, but they're actually not fake, but they have to be perceived as fake because they don't know.
Yeah. There's power in the fact that you even state your intentions up front, because I think eventually every conversation in this space gets to that point where it's almost like defining a relationship. You're like, "What are we?" But it's like, "What are
Yeah.
your intentions with me as a creator?" Like, genuinely, like, "What are you here for?" And I'd much rather even have relationships where people are like, "Hey, I like your connections, I like your vibe, I like where you stand as a person," up front, than be like, "Oh, hey," and try to develop a relationship over 3 months and then be like, "Oh, I just think you're cute," and
Yeah.
find out way later. Like, I don't have time for that.
100%. And
Yeah.
I say, I really don't kind of give away like my game plan like during podcasts in a way. I know game plan's not like probably the best word to use, but I do say that to every woman. I preach a lot about my fiance. I love her to death. She's the love of my life. She's a beautiful lady, and I wouldn't want to have anybody else in the world that I'd be with. But I make that a point to a lot of the creators because that is something that, like I said, I know it's just how it is. I feel like being upfront with something like that, I feel like does kind of help me, get a little bit more better into their lives to know that I'm just supporting them because automatically if I'm telling them anybody, I feel like I can't say this with experience, so take it with a grain of salt. But I feel like as a woman, if you have somebody that never talks about their relationships or even just little things calling you beautiful or little things here and there, I feel like those are kind of like red flags. And I feel like somebody like me instantly talking about my fiance and how I love her and stuff, I feel like that automatically makes them safer because they have a bit sensation of a feeling that I'm not going to be that weirdo 6 months later.
Yeah. No, it definitely helps. It does help with the safety part, and it I don't know, it just kinda curbs all of those question marks that you have in your brain at first. I think two of my best mods that I've ever had in my life that are mods till this day were guys like that. They came in, they're like, "Hey, I'm full on married. I want
Hmm.
nothing here. I just like your stream. I think it's cool. My wife's in here too. Like, we're just chilling." And they're some of my best friends to this day, and that's that upfrontness, I guess, is just that's what I need. I need the
Yeah.
straightforwardness, and I don't wanna spend time trying to figure out your intentions through little breadcrumbs in your communication style.
Yeah, and that's why I think like it's really important to create, your content and to do everything around with like-minded creators because that's kind of something that I'm proud of is if I tangle up with another woman creator and start branching out and she starts understanding who I am and who she is and the gaming world that we're in and stuff. If I am one of her first experiences with connecting and collabing and stuff, I feel like I'm going to leave a really good mark, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm proud of that because it's usually backwards most of the time. Like it's usually bad situations or some stupid drama, and at the end of the day, like just like I was telling you about this podcast, like there's so much drama, and that's what you usually think of when you think about a podcast. And somebody like me coming into the space and stuff, I'm not trying to sit here and preach that I'm a good person, that all these good things, but I do want the best. And it's not the fact that I'm sitting here preaching saying Feeds is great, tap into him and blow him up. It's the fact that I'm saying like I am the 1% of persons that are trying to spread positivity in this community. And the only way I know how is to preach about it and hope that people can see the genuinosity of what I'm saying. And I feel like that is not normalized at all.
It is not. I've dealt with this for the larger part of my streaming career, if you want to call it that. I am somewhat known for being overly blunt, overly honest. I don't really have a filter. I kind of just speak my mind in this space with whatever it is. And that's somewhat, I don't know, different or looked down on in some way because a lot of people are like, oh, it's not professional, it's not brand friendly, it's
Hmm.
not what a streamer would do to try to network, and I truly just don't care. I would much rather be myself and be authentic to who I am and approach brands with my entire being and approach networking with my entire being, and have people know who I am as fast as possible than spend time trying to play like filter games.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, very much like that. And I think you run in that same vein of like, I just want to be myself. And if this is how I can help, I'm going to do that. That's how I help also. I'm just completely unfiltered, and that somehow has meshed itself with my
Yeah.
brand and become a really, really big advocate for mental health. So
Yeah,
worked
definitely.
out.
And I think, even I just made a tweet about it a couple days ago. Like, there's a lot of people, like, I've gotten quite a bit of DMs and comments and stuff on some videos and stuff. And people like, oh, like, you should cover this topic, or, oh, you should have me on the podcast and let's talk about these things. And it's like, that's not me. Like, I
Yeah.
get that when you think of podcast, you think of all these outlandish things, but that's why I preach about being different because I don't like those things. Why would I want to pursue a career and getting bigger and having a chance to getting more money and more clout and all that if I can't be myself? Like,
Mhm.
what's it really for? Like, when I get to the top doing things I don't want to do, who am I going to share it with? Nobody's going to care because nobody sees when I get to the top, they're not seeing feeds. They're seeing all
Mhm.
these crazy, celebrities or whatever that I would have on the podcast, or these big conversations, these hard hitting ones, and that would be my walk to fame, and I don't like that idea. I don't like it at all.
Yeah.
I like being able to be myself, and like I said, I do focus on mental health, and it is pathetic to me that if I can't be myself, why would I preach to you to be yourself?
Yep. Yeah, there's I call it a typecast. There's almost a typecast in streaming. Whatever you've created as your online persona is the thing that you go forward with for your entire streaming career,
Hmm.
unfortunately. And if you do happen to hit in the middle of that, and you don't like the persona that you've made or who you've become online or what your reputation is, it is extremely hard to pivot after that, even down to like the games that you play or the
Yeah.
group that you play with. You get to the top, and it's really hard to make that rebrand or that change in your image. So you might as well just fucking start with yourself in the first place.
100%. Yeah. So I'm really glad to be able to touch on all those topics. And there's a couple more that I did want to throw in there, but I usually kind of save it for the
Mhm.
end. But let's finally start getting to understand who HFoxx is, how you got into gaming, into streaming, how you got your name, all these wonderful things. Let's start by gaming. When you were a kid, how did you get into gaming? Was it an escape? Was it a passion? And how did it correlate to your daily life?
Yeah. I would definitely say to begin with, it was a passion. My dad gave me my first NES and then like Game Boys and pretty much everything after that. I had like switched off consoles and a bunch of different things. Um, he definitely started my love for gaming, and I tweeted about this the other day, but Mega Man on NES was like my first game that I became obsessed with. I didn't really know what it was at the time. I had no idea like what an NES was or the other games that were even on it. I was just obsessed with that. And that's what kind of pushed my passion for gaming. And then as I got older, it was definitely an escape, and it was something that I enjoyed doing for myself, by myself, or with my friends, just as a complete like release and escape from reality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So getting into gaming, having all that transpired. I mean, you said you play Apex and you said COD.
Yep.
So how coming into that background and kind of playing more of like variety and story type games, now getting into competitiveness, how does that
Yep.
transpire?
Yeah, it's a little different. I am actually a day one COD player, so I've been playing since I don't even fucking know 2001, three, whenever it came out. I was like 11. It's a terrible game for an 11-year-old to be playing. And I was ostracized quite a bit as a kid for playing video games to begin with. It was like not socially acceptable back then, and I carried around a Game Boy everywhere I went. So I was 100% that weird kid that like had their nose in a game at all points. And that didn't help much. But I think my path in gaming in general is just I don't know, it's one of the weirder ones. I've had a love-hate relationship with it my entire life. Entering COD so young, I think gave me like this weird edge where my skin is thicker and I can shit talk and I can like, banter back and forth, but still call people on their shit and have that accountability. Um, but I also grew up with that huge edge, and it kind of forced this play where I realized that other women and girls just getting into the gaming space aren't ready for that yet, and they kind of freeze. And that competitiveness kind of, I don't know, forced me to become that way, a little hardened out the
Yeah.
gate. It's just different.
Yeah, so I did want to. I usually don't ask questions like this. I usually save it like for the end and stuff, or even like this specifically. But being in gaming and getting competitiveness and stuff, you like you said, you're an advocate for women creators and stuff like that. And like I said, it's usually something I don't ask, but I kind of feel okay asking this. Was there a time in your gaming career where you realized it started to become different? You started to realize that other creators started having a easier path than you did. Was there a time where you started realizing it started getting harder? Just being a woman in gaming.
Yeah, I mean, I would say right when you hit big growth edges, when either start a new platform or you start a video hits or a tweet
Right.
hits, something, you have some growth thing that occurs. Right on the edge of that, I would say when my TikTok first took off, I did not understand the level of like stuff that would occur after that. And for some reason, a lot of my early TikToks definitely hit that side where it was just all men being like, "What the fuck? Why is a woman in gaming? This is
Mm,
bullshit. Please leave!" Like all of that. And I angered them quite badly over and over and over again. Um, and I think at that point I was like, man, like you can have that conversation all day and say that it's harder for men to grow in streaming and talk about that, but
mm,
like I understand their struggles on both sides, but it's the harassment is just it's fivefold. I believe the last study I read, it was 5 times more prominent for female gamers than it
yeah.
was male gamers. Um, and that's everything from like threats to harm to just racism, sexism, homophobia in chat, and a bunch of other things. But it's pretty rare, I feel like, for male streamers to go through like stalking and high level threats and severe
100%.
sexism back and forth. It's just that level completely destroyed me. I would say at the very
Yeah.
beginning when my TikTok
I
hit.
definitely can understand that, and I mean even a small example, just like Valorant for instance, or even COD. Obviously, I mean
Mhm.
there's been hundreds of times that I play with women creators and stuff, and off topic, playing like by myself or just with a couple of the homies and stuff like that. You're like, oh, anybody got a mic? And it's like, hey, what's up, bro? How's it going? And
Mhm.
then automatically, when there's a woman in there, and it's like, yeah, I got a mic, and it's like, shut up, blah blah blah. I don't like saying that stuff like
Yeah.
on camera, and stuff like that. It makes me uncomfortable. But it's sad, it's sad because you can easily see that the moment that somebody
Mhm.
speaks, even if it's just a voice changer automatically, and
Yeah.
like
It's
it's sad.
it's different, and I think there's a level to it too where you're just that's your reality as like a male gamer. You get to go into
Mm,
games and you just like go have fun. And
right.
sometimes they're shitty and sometimes it's annoying, whatever. But the standard for every female in gaming is to get in a game. Okay, get back in the kitchen. We have to have a whole conversation if I even use my mic.
Hmm.
People hit on you or they dox you or it's just something every game. And for the majority of gamers that I know, the reasons why we all game is the same. We're all either escaping something or we're trying to form a community, and so to be have like vastly different split experiences every single game back to back, like you can see where we get pretty pissed off towards the end
Yeah.
or pretty triggered by all of it because it's just exhausting if you had to defend yourself or do that all the time. So then you run into people who just don't use their mic or they quit playing or they just, they can't play their favorite game. They're just logging in to zone out,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and you can't do that all the time.
Yeah, and I think the the other like tiny bit of awareness that I wish could be raised too is like people like me that do play with other women creators, and then you'll automatically they say those outlandish things, and now you are in a position where you have to defend them. And I'm not saying that's wrong at all. You should
Yeah.
defend them 100%. But it's the fact that there is people that have social anxiety that's hard. Have even
Yep.
though they know that nobody can see them and they don't know where they live and all these things, there is many other men out there that don't like having those type of confrontations, but then you're
Yep.
seeing somebody that you genuinely care about and they're having to fight for them, and you're kind of stuck. Like with me personally, I'll let you fucking have it. I'll bark. I don't give a fuck, but
Mhm.
there is people out there that can't and they won't. And then the issue is not the fact that they feel bad that they didn't say nothing, but then the woman that just dealt with all that is like, why didn't you stick up for me? Like, why didn't you say nothing
Yeah.
like that whole time? And it creates that really awkwardness. And it's not really the fact that that's how friendships end, but you can kind of tell like after that circumstance, you kind of start treating them a little bit differently because you just wish that they would have helped you during that time.
Yeah. I've had very, very frank discussions, I would say, with both my partner and just my core squad,
Hmm.
which is predominantly men, and just like, hey guys, like this is how I want to handle these types of situations, so they know where I stand with
Right.
all of it. But in general, I definitely I make content out of my trolls. Frankly, I
100%.
just mess with them back over and over again, and I definitely shit talk in lobbies. But they know when to step in, and there's a fine line between like defending a girl in a lobby and just pure accountability on the men that are treating them like shit.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we can't make progress in this space without men holding other men accountable. Like I can preach all day that
Right.
I'm like worth it and I'm
Right.
great and you should be nice to me, but that's not going to make it occur. And unfortunately, it does take another man being like, "Yo, dude, shut the fuck up, move on, play the game," and just like that's as easy as it can be. And I think a lot of men think it's always going to be some massive fight, and it's really not. The lobbies that I've been in where that occurs, where a man sticks up for a woman and it's more accountability based, it's truly just like a sit down and shut up. Everybody just play the game,
Yeah,
and then
and
you just
then
move on.
yeah, and then the conversations just get into like, all right, like, she's not gonna, bang you and all these
Right.
kind of stuff. It's still not good things to hear, but
Yeah.
I feel like I said, I can't speak from experience, but I feel like for the women, when you're in your headset and you're hearing those things, and then the person that is targeting you instantly is like, all right, bro, step back. She's not gonna, bang you and all this stuff. Instantly, as a guy, like when we get kind of correlated into it and stuff, but then that does kind of make them go away because
Yeah.
they know that somebody is kind of going against them. And I think that is a more important factor because I feel like a lot of guys, like they get awkward. They're like, oh, and there is some, that do want to make a connection with them. Nothing wrong with that, to each their
Yeah.
own. But still, I feel like there's a lot of guys when something like that happens and they're like, oh, like, I have a fiance. We've been together for 6 years and stuff. I feel like they then start saying all these things because they're trying to not make it seem like what they just said is true.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's dumb to me because they're taking away the fact that you just helped your friend not getting to some type of argument, being like
Right.
that. And I think that's kind of the stinky thing about it, where it's kind of like a lose-lose situation. But
Yeah.
I do wish that would get normalized more, that people would normalize just speaking up. And hell, if it's 5-10 minutes for them, like if I was in a lobby and I had another woman creator that was getting bashed or whatever, I instantly step in. If they start bashing me all of a sudden because I don't get laid and all these crazy, things, whatever, fuck it. Like, talk to me. Like, I would much rather you dish that shit out on me than to hurt, HFoxx over here and to have her mentality and stuff messed up, because it's statistically it's easier for men
Hmm.
to be able to take that and have that, and for women, just like you said, there's usually people that have experiences, and it could just be a simple sentence that could trigger them, and that simple sentence could have not been allowed if somebody would have stepped up for them. And I feel like that's what should be normalized.
Yeah, absolutely. And the responses to that obviously are not okay either. And my squad, frankly, like the way they respond to that stuff is they just keep going. Like they don't even
Mm,
care. They could not give two fucks that somebody's like saying that stuff about them
right.
because we know the truth at the end of the
Right.
day, right? Like we're not. doing any of that shit, and it's not even worth the conversation. But in my book, like, you've just won if that's all they have left is to just like attack the other person.
Yeah.
That's like, hey, stop fucking being an asshole. It's not that hard. In my opinion, like I've always said this too, like if you can't be funny without being like racist, sexist, homophobic, some level of like whatever, and that's the only jokes you have, you're not fucking funny. You're just not. And that's what I want the new generation of gamers to come in with, like those 10, 11, 12-year-olds that are adapting all of that, like get back in the kitchen stuff. It's just, that's the accountability I want, is like my squad being like, hey, 12-year-old, no, here's what you should actually say, and teach them how to shit talk. And like, not that there's like
Yeah.
productive shit talk, but a
Yeah.
better way, a way that's like not, you don't need to lean on being like a piece of shit
Yeah,
human.
and I think that's
to be
kind of
funny.
the double entendre to it, because something I always say is you don't know the type of impact you make as a creator, and that goes many ways. But B, also, let's say you do want to have a family, or you may already have a family, you may already have a kid that's close, getting to that age, or maybe they're 5, 6, they're building in the world. It is more important for you to make that impact, because when your children start being like us, sitting in these chairs and playing games, you are all they can correlate to. Our times right now, most of everybody's parents, my parents can't help me in this world. They don't know none of that. They don't understand any of that. They come back from newspapers and looking at the sky to see when it's going to rain. They don't come to all these new technologies and these new forms of ways of telling the future. And so I think that's kind of the more important thing, is that, and there's many other creators. I'm not, putting anybody else down by not saying their name, but somebody just like Steffi Evans, like she's an amazing creator that does highlight and, do that to toxic men that do deserve it and stuff. And there's many other creators I can name. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. Not just like specifically trying to highlight her, but that's why it is so important for them to use their platform to raise that awareness. Because like at the end of the day, it's all funny because they're getting what they deserve. But it is really more so about the objective and the purpose of doing that content. Yeah, it's funny, and yeah, they do get held accountable, but you're raising awareness, and that's the more important factor that people don't talk about.
Yeah, some people, I think that stigma, it needs to die, frankly. I think women calling out toxic trolls online, there's power in that for us. And I know a lot of people will come to the table and be like, oh, just don't give them a time of day. Like, that's what they want. They want the attention. But frankly, like, okay, I'll give it to them. I don't care. And if it forces people to rethink the way that they're going about that. I love Steffi Evans. I love Cheer Girl is another friend of mine that does that type of content. I would say all three of us make similar content about that. I'd much rather fight fire with fire. Like if you're going to sit there and think that you can just stomp all over lobbies and like not let people talk and just like you're ruining gaming. And if I have to do that back to you to get that through your head, okay, I absolutely will, because it's not something you encounter all the time.
Yeah.
So it's going to stick a hell of a lot more than it does for me.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's kind of the bigger thing too. Like, there is, and I've heard it plenty of times, like, oh, don't give them time of day, this, that, whatever. But it's like, if you get in that argument and you, as a woman, you do feel empowering enough in that situation, hopefully you have other people with you to help you, put that, asshole down. But let's just say you don't. Let's say you're gaming alone. The whole lobby doesn't have mics and it's just you and the other douchebag on the other team. Yeah, I know it's annoying to get into that conversation and stuff, but if you somehow prove him wrong or make even just a simple stutter or something, instantly it hits a lot harder, and you may not leave that game feeling the best. You may still feel a little bit distraught about some things that he said or nasty things and stuff. And, like I said, people deal with their own experiences. Like, is it true? Like, maybe I am ugly and all these dumb fucking things. Like, you may not feel the best after that conversation, but I guarantee you did make a change. You just don't see it.
Right. Yep. Yeah, that is a huge one too, being able to like understand yourself and again, kind of draw the lines on what you are and aren't okay with. Treatment wise in lobbies, I learned very early, the more that I talk, the more infuriated they get, and frankly their gameplay suffers. So when I got really good at video games, it was hilarious because I played COD just for funsies and for passion and just like hanging out with my friends. But I do have that competitive level where I can turn it on if I need to. So if they really do start shit talking and they're like, oh, this is why women shouldn't be in games, I'm like, oh, there you go. And I've never lost after that. Like, it just doesn't occur. I could just turn it on and you can just shit on the entire lobby.
Yeah, I mean, 100%.
That's your backing.
Yeah, I mean, you're playing against somebody and you're, there is times like whether it's COD or Valorant or whatever, like Valorant obviously is more distinguishable because when you see a agent, then you know like who's playing that agent. But even like COD, you can see the skin that somebody has on their gun or whatever, and you're fighting them. And there is those times where you're like, this is that dick that I'm trying to destroy and stuff. And then on the other end, they're like, oh, there she is. and you're like, you're trying to, in the heat of the moment, you're like really nervous, and then it either goes one way: they die or you die. If you die, they're
Yeah.
like, "Fuck you, you're trash," and if they die, they're like, "Oh, you're a loser. You had to sit in the corner." Like it
Mhm.
doesn't help anybody. Like nobody wins truly. But
Yeah.
it's that accountability factor where you know that you made them feel nervous and you made them feel uncomfortable, and I feel like that's kind of the goal when you encounter
Yep.
somebody like that, is making them not feel themselves. I think that's a valid feeling. I feel like some people would be like, "Oh, it's kind of harsh. You don't, maybe they had a bad day," and it's like there's no reason to have a bad day to treat women or anybody like that.
Right.
Not at all.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'm okay, quote, not being the bigger person. I frankly don't think it makes you less of a person to do that, but I'm okay not being the bigger person in that way. And I think the culture we've created in like that little corner of the internet with Steffi and Cheer and people calling others out and holding them accountable, there has been a small shift and a small change, at least in the COD community. You've seen it where like people will run into our names in lobby and be like, "Oh, don't put me on TikTok,
Hmm.
man," or like they're scared to talk because of that. And good, fine. If that means you weren't sexist in one out of your 50 lobbies tonight, I'm okay with that. At least that's progress. But
Yeah.
you see that kind of accountability, or like the videos that go viral from them that people are just spamming the comments on, and they're just like, wow, like yeah, okay, like girls can hold their own in this space, and we're finally starting to get that level of respect, or just like blanket the fact that we've been here the whole time. We just like weren't using our mics. Like we grew up
Yeah.
with video games just like you guys did. We've all
Definitely.
been here.
Definitely. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad to kind of know all that and touch base. I think it's very important for a lot of creators to hear those things and understand it. And I feel like, obviously for anybody, any women that's watching, it is very important to see your takes and stuff. But I do, to a certain extent, I do feel like it's kind of a new a new flow of hearing somebody like me say those things, because that's not
Hmm.
normalized. And it's not the fact at all that I'm trying to be like, yeah, I'm different, support me. It's like, no, it's just I see the big picture. And
Yep.
the picture that everybody else is painted, what's normalized, is a picture that should be kicked and thrown in the trash. But we talked a lot about gaming and all the struggles and stuff that you've dealt with and the way that you've accommodated things. So let's kind of revolve that into streaming. How did you get into streaming, and how did that kind of come to you?
Yeah, so I started in 2015, like I said before, and it was purely just because my friend had started streaming, and she was like, "Hey, you should try this. It's kind of fun."
Hmm.
At the time, I had a literal folding chair. I was fresh out of college. I had no furniture. I was playing on like a TV stand, like hunched up because I had nowhere to put my legs. So I was like this, and I had like a shitty MacBook and a like dying Xbox, and my stream went down literally every 30 minutes. I tried to play Destiny and Call of Duty, and I somehow ended up getting a decent little community together for a couple of years, and that was really really cool. And then I like started my actual like in real life career and took like a 5 year stream break until I came back in 2020. So it's definitely a weird gap of a journey, but I just really liked streaming. And when COVID hit and I had nothing else to do, like many COVID streamers, I was like, hey, I'll just go back to that. But I had experience before, so that was helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, COVID was big for everybody. I mean, I've said it a lot on my podcast. I'm not gonna, go all back into my experiences and stuff, but in general, like it did create a lot of time, and I kind of tell everybody, like, yeah, like COVID was a good time, and it was a bad time for everybody. There's a lot of
Hmm.
good people that did pass away, a lot of unfortunate things, but at the same time, you can't deny that COVID was a good thing for this country. I mean, statistically, it was for mental health reasons, most definitely. Give everybody the reset that they needed to be able to bounce back from it, and the new avenues and new creations that they got into. And there's even a
Hmm.
certain percentage of streamers that had, they were busting their butt day in day. COVID hit, they were stuck at home, and now they're full-time creators because of
Yep.
that happening. And that's a beautiful thing, and that's something that somebody wouldn't have had. And like I said, it just having that mental reset, with the way that money was happening and all the stock market stuff and all everything shutting down and all the medical stuff that happened and things that you needed to go out and do that you couldn't because places were shut down. Like it was all awful, but at the end of
Yep.
the day, there's nothing you could do but look on the bright side of that. And I kind of took that same way. I was able to
Yep.
get my PC for the first time when COVID hit. That's when I kind of took streaming, and
Nice.
I had started understanding the space that I was in. Like I said, I'm not really going to get all into it, but COVID definitely was a big help for me because it gave me that mental reset to understand, you know, this is who I want to be. This is the kind of things that I want to do, and it did take because that was back in 2020, and
Hmm.
now fast forward we're in 2023, so it took me 3 years to understand that my content ends up doing a lot better just because it's me rather than my gameplay. But I did enjoy it. I don't regret anything at all. But now fast forward into these podcasts, I'm starting to realize like yeah, I can regret that I should have done something like this a long time ago, but I definitely would not have had the amount of vouchers and the support behind me if I didn't grow the way that I did. And I think that's very important for the people that connect and get into streaming. So I'm glad to know like a little bit about your streaming career and stuff. Was there anybody that had really helped? And you said you had a friend that had usually got you into streaming. So coming
Yeah.
along that way, was there a couple people that had helped kind of mold that aspect for you to really get HFoxx to understand like, is this for me and is this something I'm passionate about?
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely quite a few streamers in different spaces. The friend I mentioned earlier is Kaylee. She still streams. She's partnered. She's wonderful. One of my best friends to this day. Love her to death. And then I had on the Destiny side, I was like a huge fan of Laced Up Lauren. She was one of my like first like Destiny creators I ever started watching, and just her presence and understanding who she was on stream and what she stood for and sticking to that, and then seeing her growth was kind of like a huge, huge motivation to me. And then there's just other creators like Steffi Evans. I love Steffi to death. X Marie Angel, a few other COD creators that have just sparked passion, I would say. I think I definitely really struggled with the motivation of wanting to stay streaming throughout that time. Because it is hard on your mental health, and a lot of people just don't ever, you don't know how long to stick with it or whether or not it's going to work out. So you
Yeah.
just kind of start doubting yourself, and the right people stepped in at the right time, and those people I'm very thankful for.
Yeah, definitely. And there is a couple more topics that I do want to talk about before we end off on here, but I always want to make sure to bring this up because names and aliases are very important to me, specifically as a creator. It's something that I always look forward to. I love hearing the backstories about it and how you developed your brand. So tell me where HFoxx had came from and how that had come to be your branding.
Yeah, so I had my very first, like, I don't know why, childhood gamer tag, was HFoss, because I had this weird nickname in middle school, basically foster child. I'm not a foster child. I'm not adopted. Anyway, it was my nickname in school, so I ended up with HFoss 77 because 7 was my soccer number, and I was very young, and I was like, throw that in there. Why not? And then when I started streaming again, I was like, okay, well, like, I can't just like keep throwing this in here and explaining that every time. Fox is my favorite animal. It's also a big part of my indigenous tribe imagery. So
Hmm.
I kind of branded myself around Fox, and HFox just stuck, and the 77 is still there. I'm probably going to drop that one day, but
Yeah.
here we are. It worked.
Yeah, I mean that's sick, and I kind of explain the same thing every time, but I feel like names are very important because you have somebody that grows and that hits the milestones that they finally want to hit, and like I'm thankful to watch my fellow creators grow and hit what they want to hit.
Mhm.
But to me personally, I like knowing how they got their name and knowing that they developed a name of HFoxx and then getting to where you finally want to be, and you would not be all of that Oreo stuff in the middle without creating HFox in the beginning. And so that's
Yep.
something I try to normalize because there's a lot of people that struggle with their names, or there's a lot of people that go by names they don't really care about right now, or that has no
Yep.
meaning, or like, oh, I'm my name is Billie Jean because I like the song. And it's like, like it's fine, I guess, to each their own. Like in a hypothetical instance, it doesn't really matter. But I do feel like if I can raise awareness about it, I can,
Yep.
because I feel like it may not mean a lot now, but when you get to where you want to be, because you will, when you get to where you want to be, it'll mean more then. And just
Yep.
you making that change of just simply what you enjoy and what you're passionate about today, and finding a branding that involves everything you care about in one, and then you get to where you want to be, it's going to mean so much more that you change that today rather than waiting
Yep.
until tomorrow or not waiting at all.
Yeah. I've talked about this a lot because I'm a full-time designer outside of streaming, and I think people really struggle with when and how to rebrand when it's really like not as serious as people make it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big one that people forget, is that if you are branded on like a trend or like a thing that you don't really care about, what was just like popular at the time. Like I used to call my community the Minions because Minions was popular. That's so old and played out and ridiculous if you think about it. But you can spin anything at any time, and it's your brand, and you can do whatever the fuck you want with it, and you don't have to wait for anybody's permission to redo it. You don't have to like do all this stuff. I would recommend going about it in like a smart, like
Right.
stepped out way, but like you can be anything you want to be at any point. And I think people forget that they get locked into their own brand in a way, the one that they created, and then they feel like they can't be flexible with it. And it's just not true.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely understand that. But I mean, I'm glad to be able to kind of, we've touched base on your gaming, a decent bit about
Mhm.
your streaming and your name and stuff. And so I kind of want to go back to a little bit of topics that I want I try to cover them like when we're on the topic, but I want to make sure that I don't forget because at the end of the day,
Yep.
like the podcast is still about you, and I want to know about you before we get into your opinions because I think it's important for people to understand you first before they understand your opinions. So now that we've kind of covered those things and your background and the wonderful people that's got you into streaming and in gaming and stuff, specifically because a lot of this topic has been for women creators and struggles that they deal with and stuff. Give me insight on your opinions on women creators specifically, or people that identify as whatever they identify as, and they struggle with what are they going to say? You know, are they going to call me names, or am I going to get hate raids? Why should I even start streaming? I really want to create content because I like this game, but I just don't feel like people are going to accept me. You know, what advice would you have for creators that want to take that next step, but they feel like they're limited and they're scared of what happens?
Yeah. I think there's power in being a healthy level of scared, but there is a level where it just impedes everything that you want to do and accomplish as a creator. And I don't feel like it's fair to let yourself like go out on a dream because some dude on the internet who hasn't left his mom's basement in like 20 years is pissed off. Like, it's hurt people, and I say that all the time. But you don't know these people, and the only people you have or take opinions from are the people that you love and are around you and that you trust. These are random people on the internet. You're never going to see them again. You never have to talk to them in real life. You can separate it. There is a way to compartmentalize that, and you can get there and you can just work at it. And it does take time. And unfortunately, it's just part of this space and it's not going to go away. So if you just let that be your blocker forever, you're just never going to start. And I think that's not fair for the passion and the end goal that you want.
Yeah, most definitely. And on the flip side, being on that same exact topic for the same thing for, you know, again, whatever you identify as whatever, you know, everybody should be treated equal, obviously. I feel like
Mhm.
that's such a it's such a dumb sentence to say because it should be something that you shouldn't even have to say. It should just be common knowledge. You treat
Yep.
somebody how you want to be treated, but for whatever reason it don't happen. So with streamers and specifically for women creators that struggle with not having friends, not collabing. They don't know how to network. They're afraid to send a DM. They're afraid to pop into somebody's stream and say hi or whatever the case may be. You know, what advice would you give for other creators that do want it and they're okay with whatever backlash that comes and struggles that they have to deal with, but they don't do it because they don't have the support behind them. What advice would you
Yeah.
give for them?
I mean, I always talk about networking in terms of like it's just true genuine friendships for me, honestly. So like if there's streams or people or creators that you've always kind of hung around or you really like their vibe or whatever, start seeking out people in that community too. You don't have to play with people online all the time. You don't have to play on stream. You can form those connections kind of in the background and gain that trust level. Like we talked about earlier, it's
Hmm.
going to take some time, most likely, for whoever you approach, honestly. And that's the way that me and my friends have all gone about it too. They've all asked me to play offline before they've ever attempted to be on my stream or be invited in that way because it kind of takes out that whole like, oh, you're leeching me. You just want me for
Yeah.
my engagement. You just want me for my community. Um, it's unfortunate, but most of my answers in these is just start, send the message. I still struggle with this. Every creator I've ever known, even higher than me, has struggled with this to some extent. It's so hard to just send the first message. But honestly, the creators that you think are going to say no are honestly the ones probably that don't get asked a lot to do that because everybody thinks they're going to say no. It's like the weird psychological part of
Yeah.
that. So they might say yes, just try it. And if you think you like a community, just hang out there and form genuine, real connections. And you'd be really surprised about the people that other people bring around as well. Mods and different regulars will start popping by from other communities and other streams, and that will organically just get you to a spot where you can trust people a little bit easier.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that it's really important, and I think that's it's kind of the same thing. I mean, just like I told you about my podcast, like you know, that's originally why I haven't done my podcast for a long time because I never really struggled with networking. I just struggled with that other factor where I know that I can easily reach out to somebody about gaming and they'll say yes, but if I reach out about a podcast, then they're going to ask me all these questions. I have to think of
Yep.
answers I'm going to give them. And so, you know, where I'm going with this is on that factor. You said, you know, you want to surround yourself with like-minded creators, and that's you know, I created this little dumb Twitter page for Feeds Mindset, just that specifically has everything in one place. No random tweets or retweets or whatever in between. It's just episode. May change in the future, I don't know. But the reason why I do that, in the bio, it says guest followed. And I say this all the time. It's not to flex how many people I've had on here. It's
Mhm.
because if and I was just saying this in my last podcast that I did with Maverick. She's another women creator and she's in the military And I was explaining the same thing to her. I was like, at the end of the day, if there's somebody that enjoys my content and they like the kind of person I am, there's no reason for them to hesitate reaching out to the people that I support. Anybody that's
Yeah.
on my podcast is somebody that I either support, somebody that I don't know and that I want to support, or I just genuinely think that they're a creator that's going to make an impact in this world. And so that's why I want to have them on the podcast. And I was telling her the same thing. I was like, if you are a woman creator and you come upon here and yeah, you may think that my intentions are good, but you're just still not comfortable with being with another guy, I can give a fuck less. If that gives you the opportunity to connect with HFoxx and you kind of feel bad, she's like, oh, like, HFoxx, she's really cool and feeds is great, but I'm still not comfortable. That is fine, because that's all I'm trying to do is raise awareness and get people to collab. You don't have to collab to me. You don't have to reach out to
Yeah.
me just because I'm the host. I'm not going to take it in a way to where you're leeching off of other people or whatever like that. I just want you to grow. I want you to network, and
Right.
I want you to get out there. And I have kind of felt that in the past couple of days. I feel like there's a couple people that have reached out to other guests and they kind of like beat around the bush, be like, yeah, like I found you from Feed's podcast. And it's like, say it with your chest. Like, that's fine. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't bother me at all. And I feel like that's kind of how the world is. They see somebody that has done really good and somebody else that's a part of it, and they're just more interested in the other factor. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I feel like that's something that should be normalized. You don't have to
Yep.
get to know me to connect with HFoxx, and I think that's
Yeah.
something that should be normalized. A lot of people aren't used to being said no to. A lot of people aren't used to saying, well, I don't really want to connect with you. She's a woman creator. I feel more with her. There's a lot of people that would get offended by that statement. I don't. And so, I think that's the more important factor of, just because you connect with a like-minded creator does not mean that you have to also get approval from where that's stimulated from. I mean, do you feel kind of the
Yeah.
same way about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's sometimes a weird pressure that you have to like stay friends with your friends of friends or like mutuals in this
Hmm.
space. And it's just not true. Like you can simultaneously have respect for content and like how somebody is and who they are as a person, but just not vibe with them, and that's okay. And that is like a necessity, like a maturing that you have to have as a streamer. It's just like, okay, we don't click well. Like that's fine. I don't. That's not a huge deal. You don't have to get along with everybody in your entire life. And being able to kind of separate that and still have mutual respect, but not have to be like super close to everybody is fine. And I think a lot of people are scared to reach out purely because, like, what if it blows up and then I have all this drama? And like, you can simply just not engage with people too. That's also an option.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I fully agree. And like I said, at the end of the day, this is about mental health. It's about raising awareness. And on that topic, I know that we have talked a ton about mental health, but I do want to bring up one topic. I kind of off and on ask this question to certain creators, but I do kind of want to give you your own chance to talk about your own opinion on something before we tally up here and stuff.
Hmm.
Being burnt out and going through a lot and just having to where you're just not feeling like it anymore, not feeling like doing it. There's creators that struggle with it every day. They have family issues. They don't grow as much on their social media. They don't have games that they like playing anymore. What
Yep.
advice and what opinion do you have on creators that are struggling with that mental health part? They're getting depressed
Mhm.
and they're having a burnout. And what advice would you give to them to bounce back and to understand it better?
Yeah, two different answers based on two different groups. First is if you're doing this for money, you obviously have a very different mindset and different set of circumstances. You can't just like quit your job
Yeah.
and move on. So burnout with that instance kind of takes its own shape, but take a break if you can. If you cannot, I recommend batching all of your content as much as you can so that you're not shooting every single day and overwhelmed by everything. And then just taking, honestly, transparency was like a huge part for me. Being really honest with your community. Hey guys, I don't feel great and I still need to stream and I need to be here and I'm hoping this stream goes better. And I love you guys and I want to give you good content, but I'm a little out of it today. Just be over the top, like honest with it. And a lot of people react a lot better to that than just like noticing that their streamer's pulling away, but they don't know why or why some of the vibes
Mhm.
are off. And then if you don't do this for money, take a break.
Yeah.
Frankly, just step away. It's honestly the best reset that you can get. And if you don't feel like you're resetting, I would challenge that with like, are you still sitting on social media watching all of streamer world? because you're not truly stepping away. You're not on vacation. You're not taking a break. You're just like mentally invested without physically being invested. So truly step away and take a break. And same with like the content, batch it if you can, schedule it so you don't have to be involved in posting it every day, and just sort of give yourself the time you need to recoup. And a reminder that streaming isn't for everybody. You might be one of those people that just doesn't do well with the criticism and the burnout and the requirements for everything. And you have to kind of be radically self-aware with where you're at. And if it is one of those choices where you have to make and just decide like, hey, this isn't for me, I'm going to step back fully, then okay, you can always come back to streaming. You could always come back.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I definitely think that it's good advice. And I think, the flip side, a really weird opinion that I have, for myself that I've applied is there's only been a couple times in my streaming life that I've took a break and stuff. And the really weird way that makes me happier is because all these people that I support, all these videos that I watch that I look forward to every day, if I desocialize for 2 or 3 weeks, that's all of that new content that I missed out on that I now get to take up my time and
Yeah.
watch. And that's like a really weird way that I implement being able to be like, all right, if I bite my tongue for 2 weeks and not talk to nobody and be bored for a while, but get myself back into check, then when I check out this content that I missed out on, it's going to be more impactful. It's going to be a
Yeah.
lot more meaningful. I'll be more energetic. I may even leave a comment, just it's the little things in life. And I feel like that's kind of maybe if somebody struggles with something and needs some type of reasoning, if that's a reason for you and you want to step away just because you want to give time and let content flow and get back into it and do some reactions and stuff, do it. If that needs to be your escape.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's a big part that people miss out on is there's silver linings to they always look at it as like, oh, I'm taking a break, I'm going to lose my entire following, everything's going to die. I
Mm,
obviously have no momentum, and it's like very catastrophized when we all logically know that's not going to happen. It's still the number one response when you ask anybody if they should step away or if their mental health struggling. They're like, I can't, I'm going to lose everything. When like, okay, I took a 3 month break from TikTok and I lost 200 followers overall out of
yeah.
16,000. Like, I'll take
And
that
I
hit.
think
That's perfectly fine.
I think on the flip side
You'll
of
be
that too,
fine.
what I want to add on to that is there's a lot of people who's like, oh, I used to average 5 viewers and now I average 20, and if I leave, I'm not going to average that anymore. My question to them is, of those 20 viewers, is there anybody that originally was there before you growed? Is there anybody that you're actually upset that you're not going to be there for, or are you just
Right.
upset because your numbers aren't that high?
Yep.
And the answer always to that is there's only like maybe one or two extra genuine people that's actually there every time. And for the most
Yep.
part, the rest of everybody else there is either there for bad intentions or your skill level at the game. And thinking they're not going to pop back in another month, they still tapped into you because they want to watch your skillful at the game. So it's going to be all the same. And taking a break is something you should do for yourself. And it's kind of something to where you become selfless in a way. And I
Yep.
think that it's important that you hold yourself accountable, and you're not doing it for you, you're really doing it for your community. Because if somebody taps in and
Mhm.
like, new chatter, hey feeds, how's it going? Oh, hey man, how are you? They're gonna
Yep.
exit. They're gonna click
They
off. They're
notice.
not gonna
Everybody
care.
notices.
And
Yep.
I think that's the reality check. A lot of people, they're like, oh, like they don't notice. Like I'm about it. It's like, no, you're fucking not. In your damn stream, go take some time, go take 2 or 3 showers back to back just to feel alive. I don't know, like do something.
Yep.
And I think that's the important thing is having that mental reset is something that is not normalized at all. And if there was some people out there that got that through their thick skull that they just need a break, they would be the best version of themselves that they've ever been.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So yeah, but that's pretty much everything. We'll wrap it up here. To end off on everything, HFoxx, is there anything that you have upcoming that you're excited to share with your community or anything?
Yeah, we have, let's see, we got, I do Fox's Fright Nights, which is my Halloween event that I do every Halloween. We have costumes, we have giveaways, we have charity stream, we have a lot of different things happening. And then I also do the Fox's 12 Days of Foxmas. So that's around Christmas time. Those two events are both for charity. I take none of that, but you guys get a ton of giveaways and a ton of ridiculous stuff from my partners and myself, just as a thank you and an end of year, just fun thing for events going on.
Yeah,
But
yeah, no,
yeah,
that's
very
sick.
excited.
I'm definitely happy. You can check her Twitter out right below her face. You can check in the description and the link below. Check her out on all our socials and stuff when she's live and when she posts. Super genuine creator, you definitely want to have in your corner as far as support and stuff goes. Fox, before we end off on here, is there any last words you want to say to anybody watching?
Do no harm, take no shit. been my motto forever, so live by it. It helps a lot.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate everybody watching. Thank you guys so much. This has been episode 23, I believe. I really appreciate all the support that I get on this. It means a lot to me that everybody wants to take the time and just kind of better themselves, because we're all educating ourselves on how to be better and how to be more genuine. So I do appreciate it. So yeah, this has been a Feeds Mindset episode 23. Hope you guys enjoy. HFoxx, again, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
And we'll see you in
thank
the next
you.
one. My name is Feeds, and I'm out, guys.